Good afternoon and welcome to HealthSystemCIO.com All-Stars Panel, Security Spotlight, a complimentary webinar from HealthSystemCIO.com sponsored by Optum. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. My name is Anthony Guerra. I'm the Editor-in-Chief of HealthSystemCIO.com, and I will be your moderator today. You can ask questions at any time during the program. Type them into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. Leave the default set to all panelists, and we'll pose those to our speakers later in the program. But you can send them in as they occur to you. You can download the deck by using the URL on your screen, and we've also got a shortened URL at the bottom of all slides. And we are recording today's event, and we'll get it posted to our YouTube channel just as soon as possible, and you will receive an email when it's ready to go check it out. So this is how we're going to spend our time today. We're going to go about 35 minutes with our main panel discussion, then we're going to take your questions towards the end of the program. Our panel consists of Buddy Hickman, EVP and CIO at Albany Medical Center, Jigar Kadakia, Chief Information Security and Privacy Officer with Partners Healthcare, Shafiq Raab, Dr. Shafiq Raab, VP and CIO at Hackensack University Medical Center, and Kevin Charest, Security and Cyber Defense Operations with United Health. Also, I'll be showing bios of each of our speakers as they're speaking. But we're going to jump right into our discussion today because we're going to go, as I said, about 45 minutes, so no time to waste. I'd like to get an overview of each of our panelists' organizations. So, Buddy, would you mind starting off?
I'd be glad to, and thanks for having me join this very, very good panel, Anthony. So I'm the Executive Vice President and CIO at Albany Medical Center in upstate New York. Our primary catchment spans about 25 counties of New York. The organization is 2 hospitals serving as an academic health science center with a faculty practice and an integrated medical college. We're spread over about 48 geographic sites today. However, as of the first week of January, we merged our newest family member at the Columbia Memorial Hospital System into our larger organization, and hopefully the Saratoga Hospital System will also become part of the family mid-year once we clear all of the process with the FTC and so on. So we continue to grow. We're proud of that, and again, we're proud of the academic health science mission we bring to the region.
Excellent. Jigar?
Hi, Jigar Kadakia, Chief Information Security and Privacy Officer at Partners Healthcare. So similar to the previous hospital, we're a large integrated academic medical center hospital located here in the Boston, Massachusetts area. The 2 big names are Massachusetts Hospital and Brigham and Women's Hospital. We have a large research organization as well as a number of affiliate hospitals as well as small community hospitals.
Excellent. Dr. Raab.
Hackensack University Health Network presently is composed of 4 hospitals, and it's an academic medical center and a teaching center. We are building a brand new medical center. Come summer, by February, we'll acquire 1 more hospital, and come summer, will be 15 hospitals, close to 3,500 beds. And Hackensack University Medical Center is the #1 hospital in the state of New Jersey and top 3 in New York and New Jersey. We continue to serve our community, and we have a great population health program as well as a teaching program. And we are good people.
Excellent. And one of them is my wife, so there you go. Kevin.
Yeah, hi, I'm Kevin Charest. I head up the IT security and cyber defense operations for United Health Group. Obviously, United Health Group is a very large healthcare provider, insurer, and technology company. We have essentially, we often consider there's no regulation that doesn't apply to some part of our business. So we are highly audited, highly regulated, and sufficiently attacked, as are the other esteemed members of this panel on a daily, minute-by-minute basis.
I love it. Highly regulated and sufficiently attacked. Very good. All right, let's go down and let's just get an overview of top security priorities and projects. Buddy?
Okay, well, maybe I'll do something at the top level and conceptual. We have an IT security roadmap. That roadmap is something I would describe in the sense of saying we have sort of 5 large buckets that the roadmap described. The first being governance and policy, with a number of things that we're doing in that area to include everything from how we manage security oversight to quarterly internal performance reviews, whatever we need to do with external review processes for HIPAA and otherwise, how we do our own management and internal audits of administrative and domain rights and support other outside parties, as well as how we manage business associates and other regulatory requirements. A second big category is what I would call cybersecurity. It's a big category. We have a lot of activity inside of what I would say is a subcategory of network that has everything to do with how you manage the perimeter, but also all the activity around traffic and filtering and scanning and so on. We have activities centered on threat monitoring and assessment. It is just what it sounds like. Data loss prevention, endpoint protection, and then as to the other 3 big buckets, one I would call identity and access management, and I think most of the folks on the call as well as participating on the panel are well informed of that. We have a category around risk management in particular, and then one around workforce security that has a whole lot to do with everything from background checks to audit log management to security awareness training and so on.
Very good. Jigger?
Yeah, so we've been working on a 3-year strategy to really mature the information security and privacy program here at Partners, and I'll just highlight a few key tenets of this. We're moving down the path of doing analytics around security events through monitoring and other tools to correlate not only network traffic but human behavior so we can spot suspicious activity within the environment and really take action. Identity management is another big area of focus for us, really to align roles and responsibilities to individuals that are individuals with the appropriate level of access. Other areas include, more emphasis around training and awareness, both from phishing education, but also from just general education around security. And really, the last 2 areas that are really new will be mobile technology and mobile security. So how do we deal with mobile technology in the future in the healthcare field? And how do you manage the BYOD environment and those type of things? And then biomedical security, which is getting a lot of airplay. I think the FDA has a meeting this week, what to do with biomedical security in the environment.
Excellent. Dr. Rob?
Well, we divide our information security program or strategy into governance, education, physical, policy, people, and tools. In the governance, one of the things that we do is that we cooperate with investigation and coordination with physical security and the United States Secret Service, FBI Cyber Division, DHS Homeland Security as well. We also have our Information Security and IT Risk Committee, we have metrics, and we have the Risk Assessment General Application Network. Education is key as we are learning that because of people are trying to do different types of ways of getting to people. So we have enterprise-wide information security awareness and training for board members, executive staff, physician, residents, interns, volunteers, consultants, other contracted workers. And then we also have activities to support Department of Homeland Security. October was like our Security Awareness Month. And then we also have online, ongoing, and on-site activities to reinforce security. For physical, of course, we have facility security plan, access control, validation procedure, and other things like device and media control. For policies, we do risk management, vulnerability policy, remediation, and IT incidents, response plan. Then, of course, in people, we also have a cyber SOC, like a security ops center. There's a manager, lead, senior analyst that run it. So we also have a plan. We do inside. Some we outsource. In tools, we have, like everybody else, we have about more than 50 different tools that we have in our place. But above all, we also have a very robust Chief Information Security Officer, Maria Suarez, phenomenal lady, knows more than I do and runs the tight ship. But what we have learned is that whatever we do, number one thing is education, and number two thing that we are finding out, passwords are not sufficient. So two-factor authentication everybody using, but we're also now implementing the thing that comes on the cell phone, a code and a number, at least for once a day to log in with a single sign-on, so that we are somehow protected. Because once recently we did a password cracking, and we were able to crack more than 1,500 passwords. So that's how we went towards the two-factor authentication and using cell phones and others to make it better. And the recent FDA thing, we're not worried about it because we have a segregated biomedical network. We have always done that, and we have tightened that.
Excellent. Kevin?
Yeah, thank you, Anthony. You know, for Optum United Health Group, we have sometimes a kid almost every tool there is. We've got a very robust cyber defense operational model that we have in place that we continue to expand as we acquire new businesses, as we support new customers, as we identify new innovations in healthcare. You've got to bring security with that all the way, obviously. So we're very active with our business partners on sort of their emerging market initiatives, but also the core. So we've got a very robust identity and access management program. To Dr. Rob's point, you know, about passwords are not sufficient. I've been doing red team for many, many years, and I can certainly attest to that. And the reality is we've got smart cards we've initiated here. We're rolling that out, actually completed that out in a large majority of the enterprise. And now it's really taking that next level and saying, okay, how do we enable legacy applications with smart card, certificate-based authentication, tokenization of ID, and a variety of other initiatives. So tying that together with our continuous monitoring and cyber defense operational fabric are significant focus for us this year.
Excellent. Okay, let's move on to our next question. We'll go to you first, buddy. Discuss the difference between internal and external threats and the strategies that must be applied to each. Are they equally important for your attention and time? And what strategies can you suggest to secure data from internal and external threats?
At this point, I would say internal threats and external threats are equally important. Used to be that we worried a lot about malware, viruses, worms, Trojans, and so on as the key external threats. And the world is changing, and if you look at all the stats on the breaches that we have seen in the last 2 and 3 years, all the stats are changing, as I would say, in the wrong direction. I mean, certainly criminal attacks are on the upswing. Advanced persistent threats are on the upswing. We're now seeing the medical identity theft cases just continue to climb, in fact, doubled in the last 5 years, and so on. As to internal versus external, if I bucketed them, you know, malware, viruses, worms, and Trojans are still an outside threat. When we think about workforce members or criminal insiders, you know, people doing things they shouldn't be doing, that is forever our biggest internal threat. Phishing, I'll toss it out into its own category of malware because it fits both the internal and external concern because generally phishing is going to come from the outside, but it has everything then to do with how the inside person reacts to the phishing email, and that is, frankly, one of our gravest concerns is how do we continue to manage that particular threat, given its association with yet another concern. Web-based attacks, denial of service, again, an external threat, but we're learning as we continue to experience them now that they are becoming sort of, I'll call it the shiny object to distract you to think that you've got just a denial of service kind of thing happening when indeed it may be something that's being launched by cyber criminals or as most of us now know in the public from everything that's out there, the Chinese government and Chinese military. Social engineering could be an internal or external threat, but nonetheless something I continue to see on the rise. And then medical device breaches, I have to mention that because we're all worried about that. That could be internal, external. Advanced persistent threats, I've mentioned that once. There is such a linkage now to web-based attacks then associated by the follow-on phishing attacks that are generally spear phishing attacks targeted at our most sensitive or highest profile computing users. That has become an ultra concern at this point. And I'm seeing the phishing attacks also being cleverly socially engineered. So, for example, the CEO receiving the spoofed email with the link from the CFO, not really the CFO, but the spoofed CFO, or the COO of our college receiving the spoofed link from his administrative assistant, to which he said to me, you know, I knew it wasn't her because it was sent from an iPhone. She uses a Samsung Galaxy, and it was sent at 9 a.m. on Saturday morning, and she never works on the weekends. So all of those are concerns to, I think, every one of us on the phone, and the way we're trying to approach and manage them, I'm sure, is diverse, but also has a lot of common themes.
Great. Jigger, your thoughts around the internal versus external threat issues?
Yeah, so I disagree a little bit with Buddy. I view the external threats, while they're present, I think they're well-known threats. We have a lot of, if you think about the way security has been set up, we set up with the boundaries outside, protecting the outside and worrying less about the inside. So we have a lot of things on the outside, you know, firewalls, IDS, IPS. We have all the threat intelligence feeds, those type of things. And when there's incidents, it's well known, or you know, zero-day exploits get quickly remediated by all the security vendors, et cetera. So I feel like the outside threat, while it is present and there are high risks associated with the outside threat, I view the inside threat to be the higher risk. This is really workforce members, both from well, not only phishing, but just, you know, becoming complacent, right? So we have a workforce, or you have a workforce that's done the same job for a number of years. The technology landscape has changed slightly. The security landscape has changed significantly, but have they changed the way they operate? Are they more sensitive to different types of events that come in, or do they ignore events? So the internal piece is really the piece that I feel like opens us up to a lot of risks. So not only from phishing emails, also from social engineering aspects, the amount of information they provide on LinkedIn, Facebook, and other social media, the amount of information they use through tweeting and texting and all this stuff. A lot of that could be corporate information, and a lot of that can be used by external threats to manipulate the internal environments. And then the other piece of that is, if you look at a lot of people's profiles, they talk about their job history, you know, database administrator, senior database administrator, database manager. Those folks are targeted because they have privileged access to the root of everyone's environments. And how well are you protecting those? Are you using privileged account management processes? And then the last piece of this is education, education, education in an environment. In the IT world, I think people are well aware of, but what about the physician or the clinician or the researcher or the nurse that touches technology but doesn't think of it as the way an IT person would think about? Those are the real risks internally, and really changing the culture internally and moving from the traditional way to the new way of the world is really the hardest piece for transformation, and really an area of big risk.
Excellent. Dr. Rob, you can either respond to what either of the gentlemen have said or the original question.
Well, you know, we live in a society where where we are very cool people. And healthcare is a place where people come to get care, and people who go into healthcare, they are kind people. So we assume everything is right. Unfortunately, the threats, it could be external, it could be internal, but at the end, there is profit to be made out of it, or some kind of disruption has to happen, whether it comes from outside or the inside people sell it to the outside. So the thing that I tell my children, and I will give you that example in 1 minute and I'll not talk too long, is that make yourself unattractive. Put a black mark on you or put some mud on you so nobody looks at you. So same way, either you encrypt your data at rest, at motion, and in our institution there's a discussion going on in taking away the titles of people on their cards. Instead of calling myself CIO, I'm just Shafiq Rab, that's it. Works in IT department, if I really have to put a department. So that we are not that attractive, that's number one. Number two is that what's happening is that we do have role and identified people to do role and the time that they work. So we are creating a way of finding out, like a person who's supposed to work on the morning shift, and all of a sudden that person is accessing the system at night. There is an alert and there is a way of finding out. So there's a new ways of role identifying and time shift identifying and incorporating that in the threat. But the last thing that's happening is that what I'm teaching my children is the following. There are evil people and there are bad people. Well, we have to teach them how to recognize it, and that we call education. But it only becomes education when we also try to make them understand by actually sending spoofed email. For example, my team sent me an email from my boss, and I looked at it, and at the bottom it was written something, and I thought, why is this email coming from my boss? And sometimes you recognize it, and we did that for our entire IT department. A lot of people fell for it. Similarly, we did for the whole institution. They fell for it, they clicked it, and then we told them, hey, you did it. So what that means is that you have to make people experience that. So these are the new ways of introducing the knowledge that there is threat, that there is bad things happening. While in the back end, we have the governance, we have the education, we have the physical structure, and the tools, and the people, and the policy. But one thing is for sure, one day or the other, bad things will happen. What we are teaching to ourselves is that how soon we can recover from it, and how soon we can learn from it and make it right. So to Buddy's speech, I agree that there are threats, both internal and external. And in the olden days, only internal was more bad, but now ransomware has become very bad. Police people are being also targeted. And there are targets now, big names, big research places, so people can take the intellectual property away. So we have to be careful for both.
Very good, very good. Kevin?
Yeah, I will. A lot of great points already been discussed. I won't try to rehash that. I will say that there, from our perspective, there's no question we have both internal and external threats. You know, Jigar may mention many of the external threats are well understood, 0 days, that sort of thing. We also see, however, a lot of custom, specifically crafted attacks, which aren't, they're actually designed to bypass those things. So we see a number of those elements that we have to deal with. But we've also got, you know, a couple 100,000 associates that we deal with worldwide in our organization. As a global organization, you can imagine that we have a rather large attack surface that we have to protect. And so as we look at the entire threat landscape, education is absolutely critical. It's a foundational piece. Dr. Rob touched on essentially testing as well, i.e. sending those emails, testing people's responsiveness. We do that as well. It's very programmatic. We do that year-round at an ongoing basis. We also test the maturity of specific organizations, and depending upon the risk associated with the information they deal with, again, I think it was Jigar that mentioned, you know, clinicians maybe seeing technology as an enabler but not as a potential vector for threat. those kinds of things, depending upon the way in which people work, you've got to really ensure that your program aligns the threat and the response, the training together, so that you're not, you know, trying to use one size fits all, because generally that isn't going to work. One last comment, I like Dr. Rob's analogy about using mud. We have a position that essentially is that we will make it so hard or threats to gain a foothold that they essentially have decided they want to go somewhere else. There are easier targets, and essentially that requires a very robust and very dynamic cyber defense operational model to be in place, which we have, and continue to evolve in the face of evolving threats. That's the other thing. This is not a static environment.
Excellent. All right. What we're going to do now is we're going to go one question to each speaker so we can move through our questions in the interest of time. So, Buddy, discuss the difference between pure computer hacking and social engineering and how each must be combated, and is healthcare information a bigger target for cybercrime, I guess, than it used to be or than other industries? So, Buddy, why don't you take that one?
You know, I guess what I would offer on this is that we know that computer hacking has become increasingly sophisticated. It used to be that it was, you know, we talk about the 16-year-old kid that was very gifted that did it for the sake of proving he could do it, and then he could go get a job at Microsoft and make a bunch of money. Or we had the kind of the one-off cyber criminal that was, again, trying to figure out how to hack into your stuff and make money by doing that. It's much more syndicated at this point, and as I've already mentioned, from whatever public sources you want to look, whether it's New York Times or Wall Street Journal, or go out and read the latest reports on the FireEye website, we know that you know, the Russian government, certainly Russian cyber criminals, I should say, are prolific, as well as the Chinese government and military are very organized around what's going on with various ways of creating significant threat. Social engineering has the association, as I've already mentioned, as to phishing and so on. But social engineering usually takes on notions that I already heard mentioned by everyone, but especially, again, I like the mud analogy too, Shafiq and Kevin, because the more profile we present, I think the more likely we are to be attacked. The more data there is out there about us and our organizations, and especially our significant individuals that can be gained socially, the more information there is that can be utilized socially for the sake of a social engineering attack. And I say that in the worst kind of way, although I also have to respect, Jigger, what you said, because there's just as likely approaches with social engineering that would rely upon techniques such as just, you know, basically walking right behind a physician who's had an online session, walks away from the WOW, leaves the session open, and now the person can go in there and do what they can on someone else's credentials if no one's paying a lot of attention. Or the phone call to the nursing unit representing that you're the HR officer looking for whatever, and able to walk out with a lot of employee information. So that all of that's a concern. The simple answer on your sub-question, is it a bigger target for cybercrime? There are certainly experts out there that would say yes. The market indicator we all keep hearing, and I know this number changes based on the latest breach and the volume of records stolen, but there's still this conversation that says the electronic health record and the associated PII is worth 5 times what you might otherwise get in terms of demographic information on the black market. So it's like $50 a record versus $10 a record if it's just the financial information. Again, I'll say that number changes. We know that number changes the more things get breached. But if nothing else, that makes us a bigger target. If you saw the article published, I think it was 2 days ago, again out of New York City, and I'm trying to recall who it was that published it, that discussion very clearly was articulating that healthcare continues to be highly vulnerable based on the amounts of money that we can expend. And while I worry about those of us on the telephone because of the profile of organizations that we represent, I worry as much, if not more so, about a whole lot of our colleagues that reside in 1Z, 2Z, 3Z physician practices, in post-acute or subacute facilities and so on, who do not have the economic means or maybe even the understandings to put in place the sorts of things that we're doing and the vulnerabilities as a result that they carry.
Excellent. Thank you, buddy. Next question, let's go to Jigger. Sometimes folks only discover they've been hacked after a large amount of time has passed. How can healthcare organizations know if they're being attacked or if there, as I would say, there's a ghost in the wires, and what can they do at that point to mitigate the damage that's been done or is currently being done?
So this is what I talked about earlier, the analytics of behavior. So traditionally, there's an employee that works 8 to 5, and they log into 7 different systems on an average day. If you take a history of that employee and start to do baselining of that employee's action, and you create an alert such that when the employee logs in at 6 o'clock, it creates an alert that someone should take an investigation. And maybe it's legitimate why that employee is doing it, but it's unusual activity and you have to create an alert on it. So behavior analytics of traditional activities and moving, let's say, one standard deviation from the normal pattern would create a set of alerts that you could investigate and determine if you're getting hacked. So someone going in and doing things under the monitoring thresholds would never get picked up, but in this method, you'd be able to pick up because you'd have traditional activities and a history of activity. So when you saw or detected unusual activity, you could go after it. So as you think about that, that's really the wave of where we're heading with security in the next 2 to 3 years. Everyone has good monitoring techniques and tools looking at traffic from north-south. So that's really traditionally where everyone has looked, north-south traffic. Now we need to look east-west. So this is packets within the environment, people behavior, et cetera, and correlating those things together using analytics and then creating detections on those events. That way we can spot things very quickly and spot the unusual activity before these attacks are able to mine the data or grab the data or grab large amounts of data in advance.
Excellent, very good. Dr. Rob, let's move to you for this question. Security in the cloud. Can organizations leverage the cloud and also secure their data? And what do you think are the best practices for cloud design and architecture with specific reference to security?
So if you would have asked me this question 3 years ago, I'd have said, forget about it. But now that you're asking the question, no, that's true. What's happened to us in healthcare, we just started doing digitalization. So we didn't have electronic health records. Not a lot of us. And as that digitalization came the sitting ducks for the people who do hacking and people who try to do social engineering and take the information away from us. And with HIPAA and everything else, we tried to spend some money and we hired people and we became a little knowledgeable. But we wanted to store our information into the cloud. Well, the biggest problem was the business associate agreement. So people started thinking that, hey, let's sign business associate agreement. And then bigger companies, as they were putting their cloud infrastructure together, they knew that healthcare people would never put their things there because when you go to risk management insurance companies, they do ask the question that, have you done this, have you done that? So today, you can store your information in a cloud. Depends which company you're talking to. But most companies have put securities around it, from access control to what time, who can access what, and if there is like behavior analysis. But that does not that does not preclude, even though if you put your stuff into the cloud security, that does not mean that internal threat goes away. External threat may decrease because people who are managing the cloud security and the architecture that they have put, they may have spent enough dollars and resources, and they may have a SOC that manages it 24 hours a day, what needs to happen. But internal threat still doesn't go away. People can steal passwords, because the people from inside still access that information. So that does not go away by putting something in the cloud. The only thing that decreases by putting in the cloud that you're relying on the bigger industries that have put a security around it, both for facility or through governance or through buying about 75 different tools to protect you.
All right, very good. Kevin, do you want to talk, I don't know if you want to take this one. Do you want to take this one, Kevin, the security and wearables, or you want me to pick a different one?
Actually, this one is probably least appropriate for me to take.
Right. Okay, let's see. These are, okay, are you familiar with the Cybersecurity Act? Do you want to talk about that?
Sure, I can talk about that.
Okay.
Not professing, I am not an attorney and I did not play one on TV. But that said, I actually, prior to joining Optum and United Health Group, I was the Chief Information Security Officer for the Health and Human Services. So actually I helped many iterations of previous cybersecurity bills that were not passed, and some of the underpinnings obviously landed here. I mean, candidly, it goes in the right direction. I think it has many of the elements that we need. I think it was, Speaker mentioned, some information sharing and partnership with, the Bureau and Homeland Security and others. We participate in that as well, both on the classified and unclassified level. But where I think they fell short and would hope for additional legislation in this area was the ability to actually provide the kind of information sharing that we as an industry, or really any of the critical sector verticals, I think, need. There are organizations that come together to try to provide an avenue for sharing of cyber information. HITRUST has a program in the Cyber Threat Exchange, or FS-ISAC is an example, and NHISAC is looking to do something. So there are other organizations out there trying to do this type of sharing around, indicators of compromise, adversarial activity, threat vectors, what's happening. But that bill doesn't provide the kind of safe harbor that we were hoping for. Doesn't go far enough, but I still believe that that is a significant advantage if we find a way to communicate what's happening in real time. The best intel I can find, the most actionable, is that what's actually happening on my network. Now, if I can expand that to other networks of like organizations in particular, where we can see what's happening in real time and can build defenses before that attack perhaps reaches us, is a tremendous boon. That I believe this act allows us to begin that process, but it doesn't go far enough in my opinion.
Buddy, real quick, your thoughts on the act? I know you're pretty involved with this stuff.
I don't have a whole lot to add. I mean, I think our resident expert spoke to that. I will offer clearly it is the time that we have, I think, significant interventions, given that this has become a global, as I'll cite another security expert that was sitting in my office yesterday, a global pandemic. We need interventions to address that. I'll say the opposite as the person on the ground. As it relates to regulation, be careful what you ask for. There's always been a theme I've carried as well. So I'm watching this through carefully, but clearly, again, I mean, Kevin, your precursor work and work that has followed has been significant.
Excellent. We're going to go with a couple audience questions before we conclude. And this one's for Jigar. You mentioned security analytics, and this is from the audience. I'd like to hear more from you, as well as the others, about how this works. Is this active analytics, meaning that it's sending real-time alerts, or passive? Also, is this off-the-shelf or created in-house? Jigger?
So it would be active analytics. So we have an MSS. So we're going to correlate all the logs and send the alerts out through the MSS, and which will create tickets for us internally. So there's a number of different ways you can do this. You'll have to develop what you would consider the baselines across the organization. Start small. And then grow it as you add more and more into it. But you have to have a way to correlate in the same language all the different types of logs you would get. So firewall logs, the Cisco stuff, we use a lot of Cisco products, network logs, et cetera, plus the user logs from the different systems, big databases, the servers, as well as the application set. And use those logs together with some secret sauce and create the alerts that you view. There will be some tuning to this because you may have you may flag for events that are too sensitive, which would create false positives. But once you get it tuned out, this will work pretty uniquely and will really provide the visibility that you don't have right now.
Excellent. Next audience question. This is for Dr. Rob. You mentioned biomedical security, and the individual would like to hear what you're doing in that area.
So biomedical, these devices is not new. In the most devices, they have archaic, old operating systems, and they also are very proprietary. That means people say that FDA will not allow that. So first, that's a lie. Second is that since the biomedical equipment are very important, first thing we did is that we segregated that network. We have a firewall between that network and our regular network. Second, you don't allow anything to go out. That means you don't allow the biomedical network or the biomedical devices starting using the internet. Because if you go out or something comes into it from outside, then the equipment becomes easily accessible from that. Third, what we are doing is that we did not believe in people. What we did is that we went to the vendors and put our protective softwares, including antiviruses and including our monitoring devices, on the servers and on the devices that, suppose there's a sleep lab, there is equipment that does other things. So we put our protective software on it so that we can monitor and get logs off it. So because if they say so, pick up the phone and call FDA yourself, and you will find out that people who have been saying this to you forever, they're just making it up. It's not true. I found that out myself. Fourth thing that we are doing is that we are going after the vendors that are still on Windows 95 to go to the latest version of Windows 7 or Windows 8 so that we have the latest patches and the latest upgrades on it. Because the vulnerabilities that come to you is because you are exploited. Like if you don't have those updated patches on it, then you will not have it. And lastly, you use the same 5 things that we do: governance, education, physical security, guarded by policies, and educate people and use the necessary tools. That's what we are doing for our biomedical safety.
Excellent. Kevin, let me get the last audience question in front of you, and then we'll let everyone get going today. To talk a little bit about the leadership structure for info security at your organization, and just your thoughts maybe around some best practices for that type of thing.
Certainly. I will, if I may, just take 30 seconds to comment on Jigger's discussion on analytics. Couldn't agree with what he said more. One of the things that I would add that we've done, we've actually built an entire security big data lake where we pump, I won't even tell you how much data associated with all of these activities so that we can do levels of correlation that no tool in and of itself can do. And it's really, whether you're using an MSS or you're doing it in-house as we are, that's where I think the real power comes in security analytics. All right, that aside, so you talk about leadership, you know, it really has to be, I think it was Buddy that mentioned he was concerned about the 2 or 3, you know, doc practice out there. I had the same exact concern. I used to be in that EMR space many years ago and addressing some of those needs for those folks. And, you know, the reality is that the leadership, the concepts of security, and I think Dr. Rob has stated them a couple of times, those governance, you know, all those things, education, those tenets hold true for whatever size organization you have. However, depending upon the size, complexity, and the interaction with clinicians that you may have, you've got to tailor your program and your leadership team to meet those particular needs. I think programmatically, these programs are all the same, if you will, but in reality and practical application, they have to be tuned to the environment, the threat, if you will, the risk landscape that your particular business is undertaking. You can imagine an organization of our size and complexity, we've got a very large and robust information security, information risk management program. But that type of specialization and differentiation may just not be practical for many, if not most organizations. So the question then is, how do you find that right mix of technical, procedural, governance, and security knowledge to meet your risk landscape?
Excellent. Well, we could have gone for certainly another hour, but I appreciate everyone's participation in the great conversation. I want to thank our panel, Buddy Hickman, Jigar Kadakia, Dr. Shafiq Rob, and Kevin Charest. I want to thank our sponsor, Optum, for making the event possible. As I said, you'll receive an email when our archive recording has been posted to our YouTube channel. Those of you who attend our events are entitled to 1 credit if you have the CHIME CHCIO certification. So let CHIME know you attended, and if you've asked us to let them know, we will. Sponsorship opportunities, contact Nancy Wilcox. Questions and comments, you can reach out to me. When you close your WebEx window today, you're going to see a window pop up with a survey asking you about this event today. It will take under a minute to answer it, and we very much value your time and feedback, so would appreciate if you answer that. And you can go to our website to view our upcoming webinar schedule. So again, I want to thank our panelists, I want to thank our attendees, and everybody have a wonderful day. Thank you.